Imagine spending 30 years of your life walking into the same tunnel every single day and never once being afraid, until the day you finally are. That's what happened to the men who worked a tunnel in the Appalachian Mountains that cost 12 lives to build. The railroad finished it, reinforced it, called it safe, and for 3 decades it was. Then one winter, without a single written explanation, the company rerouted every train around the mountain instead of through it. 40 extra minutes, added forever. Nobody official ever said why. But the men who worked that line quietly stopped taking night shifts, one by one, until there was nobody left willing to go in after dark. That tunnel is still standing, still structurally sound, and it has not hurt a train in almost 100 years. Tonight, 7 of these sealed tunnels. Stay with us, because the deeper we go, the harder it gets to look away. Number 1. What a mountain takes from the men who open it. Before we step into a single tunnel, I need you to feel the weight of what it actually cost to build one. Blasting through solid Appalachian rock wasn't a job. It was years of a man's life spent underground, breathing dust that would sit in his lungs long after the work was done, trusting a ceiling of stone that could hold for a century or fail in the next second, and having no way to know which. Some of these tunnels took a dozen lives before they ever carried a single ton of coal. Somewhere near almost every one of them is a small company cemetery, headstones facing the very rock that killed the men beneath them. So understand what it meant when a tunnel was finally finished. It wasn't just a hole through a mountain. It was a debt already paid in blood, and no company on earth walks away from a debt like that without a reason. That's what makes what you're about to hear so hard to sit with. Across 7 tunnels, in 7 different corners of these mountains, over nearly 100 years, companies walked away anyway. Not because the rock failed, not because a flood came through, but because, quietly, without ever writing it down, they stopped being willing to send their own men back inside. Think about what that means for a second. A railroad will spend a fortune to protect a structure. It will fight, insure, and rebuild almost anything, except, apparently, whatever these 7 tunnels were hiding. Hold that feeling. By the time we reach the last one, you won't be able to unsee the pattern. Number 2. The Long Bore and Widow's Cut. Picture this. You're a miner in southern West Virginia in the early 1900s, walking into a tunnel nearly a mile long, carrying nothing but a lantern and whatever nerve you have left after a double shift. That's the Long Bore, once the pride of the entire line, built to save almost 2 hours on every coal run. But something followed the men who worked it. Buried in the crew logs is a complaint that repeats so many times it stops looking like coincidence. Lanterns dimming, headlamps fading to almost nothing. Always the exact same stretch of tunnel, no matter how full the oil, no matter how fresh the battery. Crews rebuilt the ventilation twice, certain it was bad air. The dimming kept happening, and men who had worked that mountain for 15 years, hard men who weren't afraid of rock or dark, began quietly asking for daylight runs only. Nobody wrote the word afraid anywhere. They didn't have to. Their shift requests said it for them. When a new grade opened in the 1930s, the railroad didn't hesitate. 40 extra minutes, permanently, no explanation on file. The tunnel wasn't decommissioned. It was just left, exactly as it was on the last day a train ever entered it, and by every account, whatever was pulling the light out of those lanterns never left with the men who did. Now go east, into the hills of Kentucky, to a tunnel that earned its name in the worst way a place can. 12 men died building it in a single collapse in the 1890s. Their widows named it before the railroad ever did. For 30 years, it worked flawlessly. Then, in the 1920s, engineers on separate crews, men who had never spoken to each other, began describing the exact same thing in their reports. The tunnel felt shorter going in than it did coming back out. Not a delay, not a signal fault. The same straight, ordinary track, somehow taking longer to leave than it took to enter. There's no mechanical answer for that. And that silence is exactly what makes it unbearable. Night freight vanished from the schedule first, quietly. Within a decade, every run was gone. 12 men paid for that tunnel with their lives. The men who came after paid for it one refused shift at a time. Number 3. Salt Lick and Hollow Rock. Not every tunnel on this list needed a body count to become unbearable. Some are worse for the opposite reason. Nothing dramatic ever happened on paper, and that silence is what should actually scare you. The Salt Lick Tunnel, cut into the Blue Ridge foothills of Virginia, was barely 600 feet long. Short, unremarkable. What survives isn't a disaster report. It's a memo, a company instruction ordering every crew to stay under 5 miles per hour inside the bore, and never, under any circumstances, to bring a train to a full stop while inside it, regardless of signal or cause. No public reason survives for that rule. None. When the line was rebuilt in the 1940s, the railroad routed all the way around Salt Lick, even though going through it was faster. Hollow Rock Tunnel, in the Tennessee coalfields, is quieter still, and somehow that makes it worse. Every inspection called it sound. Dry, uneventful, right up until the day it closed for good. But the mines on either end kept operating for 15 more years, forced onto a longer, more expensive surface route that bled money with every single ton shipped. No flood, no collapse, just a single 1938 board memo authorizing the reroute per operational recommendation. 5 quiet words standing in for whatever the real answer actually was. 2 tunnels. Nothing you could point a camera at. Just a company that decided, without a word of explanation, that whatever was inside wasn't worth the cost of finding out. Number 4. The Whistling Boar and the Orphan Tunnel. Now picture standing at the mouth of a tunnel on the Kentucky-Virginia line at night, listening to your own train approach, and hearing a steam whistle answer it from somewhere deep inside the dark, seconds before your own ever sounds. That happened to generation after generation of crews here. For years, engineers blamed acoustics. Long stone tunnels play tricks on sound, they said. That explanation held up fine, right up until diesel locomotives replaced steam engines on the line in the 1950s. Diesels don't carry steam whistles. There was nothing on those trains capable of making that sound anymore. Crews kept hearing it anyway. If a detail like that just made the hair on your arms stand up, that's exactly the feeling this channel exists to give you. So if you want more of it, hit that like button right now. It's the only reason stories like this reach more people, and we still have 2 tunnels left that are worse than anything you've heard so far. Our 6th tunnel wasn't built for coal or timber or any mine at all. It existed for one reason: to shorten a brutal mainline grade through the Cumberland Range, and by every engineering record on file, it was one of the finest bores in the entire region. Dry, ventilated, structurally flawless. When the main line was rerouted through an easier pass decades later, the tunnel simply stopped being used. Here's the detail that should sit wrong with you. Most abandoned Appalachian tunnels get stripped down for scrap within a few years. This one had both of its entrances formally bricked shut at the railroad's own expense. A company that had already written it off as worthless still spent real money making absolutely certain nobody could ever walk into it again. Number 5. Cinder Gap. Our 7th and final tunnel is the one crews spoke about the least, because for a long time, almost nobody who worked it lived long enough to speak about it at all. Cinder Gap was cut through a North Carolina ridge in the 1910s to connect 2 logging camps separated by nearly 1,000 feet of solid rock. It was a rush job from the start, blasted through in under a year, half the time similar tunnels usually took. Every man on that crew knew corners were being cut beneath their feet. For 2 years, it held. Then came the rockfalls. Small ones, nothing catastrophic on its own. Just enough loose stone that crews began keeping a running tally on a chalkboard at the camp office. 17 incidents in 18 months. Not one was ever officially classified as a structural failure. What finally closed Cinder Gap wasn't a collapse at all. It was the camp's foreman, a man with almost 20 years of tunnel experience behind him, simply refusing, flatly, permanently, to send another crew inside after a routine inspection in 1917. His resignation letter still exists in a regional archive, and it contains only one line about the tunnel. "I have seen what that ridge is willing to do, and I will not ask another man to see it for me." The camp closed within the year. The tunnel was never inspected again. Today, both entrances have partially collapsed on their own, and the last survey ever conducted there noted, quietly, that the rock inside was still moving. He never wrote down what he saw in there. He just made absolutely sure nobody else ever would have to. Number 6. The pattern nobody wanted to name. On their own, every one of these 7 stories has a boring explanation you could reach for if you wanted one badly enough. Ventilation fails. Sound bends strangely inside long stone corridors. Exhausted night crews hear things that were never really there. But lay all 7 side by side, and something colder rises to the surface. In every single case, the tunnel wasn't abandoned because it failed. The rock held. The rail held. The engineering held. What didn't hold was the willingness of the people who had to walk into the dark, shift after shift, year after year, until the companies that owned these tunnels quietly stopped asking them to. Nobody wrote that real reason down. Not once, in 7 tunnels, across 4 states, over nearly a century. Just memos with 5 words where an explanation should be. Reroutes with no accident report attached. And entrances bricked shut, at real cost, by companies that had already called them worthless. That's not what it looks like when a place simply stops being useful. That's what it looks like when a place stops being safe, in a way nobody, ever, wanted to put their name to. That's 7 of the strangest sealed tunnels still sitting inside the Appalachian Mountains, built with blood, engineered to last generations, and abandoned by the very people who built them. If a bricked-up tunnel or forgotten rail grade exists near you, tell us below. And subscribe now, because these mountains are still hiding far more than 7.